no reason to become alarmed, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your flight. By the way, is there anyone on board who knows how to fly a plane?
The views and opinions expressed on the Avoiding Real Estate Turbulence podcast are strictly those of the hosts and their guests, and do not reflect the opinions of Century 21 Town & Country, Ross Mortgage, or any of their affiliates.
Hey everybody, welcome to Avoiding Real Estate Turbulence. Jesus, that was terrible. Hey everybody, welcome to Avoiding Real Estate Turbulence podcast. This is your pilot, John Lafferty, with Century 21 Town & Country.
And co-pilot Tony Abate with Ross Mortgage, and we are your real estate pilots. Our job is to be a real estate advocate. Sorry, John. Our job is to be a real estate advocate and also make sure you're educated about the buying and selling process. We'll keep you informed throughout until we get you safely closed.
I don't know if laughing at being your advocate is good. People may take that the wrong way. In a real estate transaction, there are many reasons why you can encounter turbulence. Today, we are going to talk to Scott Hunter with Cruise and Travel Experts, and he's going to talk about turbulence that they had in the travel industry and a bunch of other stuff. I'm excited to have him on the program today. Hey, Scott, welcome.
Thank you, John.
Yeah. Good to have you, Scott. Yeah.
Good to be here.
Well, I will.
You sound all official and stuff.
There's no script. Everything's fine. Yeah.
Okay, Tony.
We're off book.
Yeah. I will tell you, if I could jump in. The first time I met Scott, I was pleasantly surprised that travel agents as individuals was still a thing. I was one of those people, and I don't think I was alone in thinking that everybody always made their travel arrangements through Expedia or one of the other online things. I thought, now I don't travel a lot, so that's probably one of the reasons why I concluded that. But when I hear that it's still active and running, and the cool things that happen, and the fact that it doesn't cost extra, I thought that was all good stuff.
Well, just to piggy on that before Scott jumps in, it was interesting back in like 2000, I want to say 10 or 11, I had a friend of mine who he joined this company to become a travel agent. He's like, hey, go through me to get discounts and do stuff. I was like, did this guy just sign up with Amway? What the hell just happened? He's saying he can do this stuff, but I have no idea anything of what he do. So you and I have known each other for, 5-6 years now, and one of the things that I've learned from you is that there's a lot of different things that you can do to help and assist and offer advice. And there's a lot of things that people don't think about when they're traveling. But before you jump into that, let's back up. Let's take a snapshot of your industry. So back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, everybody officially proclaimed the travel agent dead, right? Because of the computer and online stuff and going to the airlines directly. So you, just a quick snapshot of your career, you're working for General Motors. The recession hits, and after 30 years there, you say, I got to get the hell out of here. Pick it up from there.
That's pretty much, well, a couple of years prior to that, you could start seeing the writing on the wall and wanted to have something to fall back on. And as I've told you before, John, Tony also, I was the go-to person at work because in my desk drawer I had AAA tour books and maps and all these various brochures that I like to look at to plan my own trips, and people knew I had these things, so they always came up to me and were asking for information. And
so, I mean, did you also have female coworkers coming up asking you for those books on hedonism? Just kidding.
I've always wanted to get a fam trip. A fam trip is actually it's familiarization trip.
Okay.
Where the hotels bring you down there and let you experience the properties. And, I mean, I get a lot of those, but I've never had an invite to hedonism. I need to get one of those. That would have to experience the property.
So your coworkers come to you. You're the go-to guy with books and magazines on different. places to travel and maybe triptychs as well that you used in the past. And so at what point do you decide I gotta pull the parachute and jump out?
Well, I ended up purchasing a franchise at the time called Cruise Holidays. And I worked that part-time while I was there at GM and for a couple of years and built up my clientele slowly. I got a Corvette club out of that, and things went uphill from there. And finally, just before the bankruptcy, it was a mutual agreement that I left, departed GM, and I've been working this full time ever since. So this will be my 12th, 13th year.
Wow. Great.
And
now, how many of your fellow employees had to sign the NDA? Non-disclosure agreement.
Probably most of them. Yeah, most.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you couldn't go back and work as a contract employee after that.
Yeah.
Which is fine for me, because I could never imagine going back to that environment, at least the environment the way it was the last few years. And I hear it's pretty much the same now for those that are still there.
So this would have been
2008,
06?
2009?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that is right in the heart of when I think most people would not. The knee-jerk reaction was, if I book a trip myself online, I'm automatically going to be saving money. And no way to validate that, but that's kind of the way it was presented. And so I think a lot of people went down that way, and it's just
right.
never been the case.
It was actually the right move, at least in my case, and for many, because the way we're at right now, there's just so much information out there, information overload. When you do a search for, just put in Hawaii, I mean, see what comes up, Hawaii vacations. People are getting tired of spending all their time going through all that information.
And probably wondering if they're even making the right choices.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're coming at it from a standpoint of not only are you their advocate, but high probability you've probably been there and can give real world experience as far as you got to check this out based on what you told me you like, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you see a change in your business? So travel industry takes a crap. All the travel agencies that used to be all around pretty much close up shop. Everybody kind of figures out different careers. You jump into this, you go to work for this company, or you buy a piece of it, franchise, right? Mm-hmm. So you buy a piece of it and you start working in this, you retire from General Motors. When did you start to see things start to grab hold that people actually started to consider using a travel agent again and sort of get over the initial response of, well, I don't want to pay his commission, it's going to cost me more, or I can do this on my own? When did you start to see a change?
Well, before I get into that, you mentioned the commission. A lot of people aren't aware that our commission is already built into the price, whether you use us or not. So if you call the hotel and you just book a room or you book a cruise, our commission's already built into that price. So why would you not use us? One reason to use us in that case would be, you see all these commercials for Carnival or Royal Caribbean, whatever. That may not be the best cruise line for you. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to direct you to the right cruise line, or the right resort, things like that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so cool. I think so many people think the polar opposite. They think they're going to pay a fee for your services, and it's not necessarily going to be the cheapest choice. And the reality is they don't pay a fee directly to you. And while it may not be the absolute cheapest choice is probably the best choice as far as what they've told you they're looking for in the vacation. I mean, that is so critical. Again, we don't travel tons, but I think back when I took my family to Disney World and I winged it, and it was disastrous because I winged it. And I so wish now that I would have had somebody tell me, you need to do this, don't go then, make sure you do this, and make sure you do that. Instead, I felt like I just kind of opened up my wallet while Mickey and Minnie just danced around the falling bills, and then we were done.
Speaking of Disney, I have tips for people Disney is expensive. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to save money,
don't go to Disney.
Well, that's the first thing. The second is if you're staying on site, for example, or even off site, and you're going to be there 2-3 days, stop at the grocery store outside the park and buy a cheap styrofoam cooler for $1. And hotels have ice machines, right? Mm-hmm. All right. While you're at the grocery store, buy a loaf of bread, buy things to make sandwiches for lunch, mm-hmm. and do that in your room before you go into the park. The park has lockers. So you can just bring a little insulated 6-pack holder with you and take that into the locker and then save a few dollars here and there. Mm. Now,
will that work with airplane liquor bottles?
It should.
Or maybe tuck those in your socks.
Make sure you call him before your next trip, John, okay?
Now, let me get back to your initial question about when did I start to see. Our industry started to notice there was a lot of articles written in the last 3 years about using travel agents or travel advisors, as they're called now, for travel. And ever since we started seeing these articles in newspapers and magazines and so forth, that's really when the turnaround happened, and it's been good.
Okay. So it's now a viable business.
Yes. In fact, I just saw a recent article where 20% of the consumers say they're going to be using a travel agent within the next 2 years. And that's up from 15% from the prior year.
Wow.
So it's gone up every year. It's gone up every year since I've been in the business.
Wow. Okay.
So let's talk about an example of when to call you as a travel agent and where your services would be beneficial, and when it wouldn't be. So, for instance, if I'm just booking a flight to LA and I'm going to stay in a friend's house for 3-4 days, and I just need the flight there and back.
Don't call me.
Don't call you. Okay.
Don't waste my time. Unless you are, and no offense, unless you're 85 years old, 90 years old, and you don't have a computer, you don't know how to go in and book a flight. Yes, then I can help you, but I have to charge you a service fee to do that.
A convenience fee.
A convenience fee. That was kind of the downfall of the traditional travel agencies that you saw in every corner.
They got used and abused and burned out.
Well, the airlines stopped paying commissions, and that was a big chunk of their revenue. So that kind of started the downward trend. A lot of agencies now charge fees for flights, booking flights. Mm-hmm. Now, where you want to call me is if you are going to Europe, anywhere international. Mm-hmm. We can get you some really good rates on airfare, bulk rates with our air consolidators that we use and suppliers that we use.
Or Disneyland, or Disney World.
Yes.
Universal. What is it called down there? Universal Studios?
Universal Studios, Orlando.
Park. Okay, Universal Studios, Orlando.
Well, Orlando and California.
Okay.
So really, it's if you're looking to book a trip or a vacation that is more than just arriving at the destination, that's when folks should reach out to you.
Yes.
If they have things that they want to accomplish, if they have certain likes or dislikes, and it's more than just the flight, then yeah, that this is where you excel, is what it sounds like.
Right. And I do go on these familiarization trips every year, whether it's a cruise or a ship inspection.
Based on the pictures you post, we can tell you working really hard.
A new ship or
Tough life.
all-inclusive resorts. I take tours of those properties every year, so I can tell you direct you in the right direction of what properties to go to. Because a lot of the pictures online are not current.
Sure. Yeah. And they're not going to put the mediocre ones in the brochure, right?
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
So when you go to these all-inclusive resorts, I mean, do they throw like, hey, if you have a couple that's going to come here, we'll set you guys up and you can get a massage and we'll show you the whole spa that we have within our hotel, and you can go out and play 18 holes on the golf course around the hotel just so you can try that out. Do they go into that depth with you so that you get the full experience?
A lot of them do, yes. Yeah. And for example, it was Jamaica last year. We toured some properties from Montego Bay to Negril, and in addition to that, they took us off-site to a company that specializes in ATVs. So you could do ATV rides through the jungle along the beach and things like that. So we get to experience these other excursions that you could go on.
Are we talking about hedonism again?
Well, we stayed at a resort right next door, but the problem was when I walked the beach, the dividing line had all these big boulders, so you couldn't get around them.
So you tried.
I tried.
Sounds like South Beach in Miami.
Oh man. Yeah.
Not that there's boulders there, but there's a marking where you go beyond that point. It's a free for all.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I think it's a huge value and a huge benefit if you're counseling somebody on putting together a vacation package to be able to say, I've been on that ship or I've stayed on that hotel. I would find that to be huge because, like I said before, the pictures, they're never going to post the mediocre pictures. But you always, or I always, will look at a website for a destination and think, yeah, you know what? They're putting their best foot forward and then some. Is this really the real McCoy? But talking to somebody who's been there, though, and knows what to look for, too. I mean, you're not just going for the heck of it to have fun. You're looking to see, all right, what type of consumer would enjoy this location?
Right. In fact, last January, we had a vacation. So we were in Punta Cana, staying at a resort, and even when I'm on vacation, I can't get away from work.
You sound like a realtor and a lender.
That's right. We walked the beach every morning, and I told my wife, I said, I want to check out these two other resorts that are further down the beach and see what they're like, because I hadn't experienced them firsthand. And the one day we walked up to the one, we walked right up there, we sat on the lounge chairs by the pool, had a few drinks delivered to us. They didn't know, they assumed we were staying there. I shouldn't probably say this, but
Shan't be going back.
but I got to experience somewhat what the resort was like. Didn't see the rooms at that point, but and the next day we went to another one, just for an hour or so.
Let's talk for a second about when that client calls you. They're on site at the place that they've booked through you, and something goes wrong. Something goes sideways. They're not happy with the room they have. They had to wait a long time. Something's gone wrong, and they're calling you. Is that the right thing to do? You're the guy that's going to be able to fix it or make alternative arrangements for them?
Yes. In fact, before they go on their trip, I give them their travel documents in a packet with my business card, and I say, take the card with you. If anything comes up, contact me. The cheapest way normally is by text if you're out of the country, but whatever way works, email, or phone call. Yeah, I had a couple that was in London just recently, and I got a text saying they got to the hotel, and the hotel says the room wasn't paid for. Well, it was paid for. The supply, that's one of our suppliers' properties that they use all the time, and it was just a mix-up with accounting. So I got that squared away, and I had a bottle of wine sent to their room, just to say, we're sorry, the supplier's sorry. Things happen occasionally.
That's huge, though. I mean, especially if you're out of the country or in an unfamiliar place. If that kind of thing happens and they had not used a travel advisor such as yourself, you're stuck with calling whatever 1-800 number you might be given. And it's not. I can't imagine that the troubleshooting would be the same as if that resort or ship gets a call and it's like, look, I'm the travel advisor that booked this. This is what's going on. We need to take care of these folks. I'm sure it's handled entirely differently.
Right. If you call a 1-800 number, you're going to have to go in and explain everything to this person. Yeah. Whereas I know firsthand what's going on and can get to the problem right away. Now, a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I had a family that was on a cruise, Mediterranean cruise, and they were in Venice. And I had gotten a phone call from the husband saying his wife broke both of her ankles getting off or on a water taxi in Venice.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
So she was on her way to the hospital. The husband and daughter were on their way to the hospital, too. The ship was leaving Venice in 1 hour, and their luggage was still on the ship. So luckily, they had taken out the travel insurance. So I got on the phone with the travel insurance company, let them know, gave them the number. They contacted the client and got things squared away. They got their luggage off the ship. They got them into a hotel, the husband and the daughter. And to make a long story short, this would have cost them $50,000, $60,000 if they didn't have the travel insurance because they had for her to travel on a plane, they had to buy a whole row so she could lay flat.
Wow. And the travel insurance covered that.
They covered
because
that.
Of the circumstance.
Yes. So I always recommend travel insurance, especially if you're leaving the country.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And the people are not going to hear those scenarios when they're clicking online to book a trip. And, the knee-jerk reaction for anything that might be deemed an extra is just to check no, because you don't want to increase your costs. But, hearing real-world examples probably makes somebody completely rethink their choices.
That's why I always say I answer the questions you don't know to ask.
That's well put.
And speaking of that, our friend Wayne mentioned that he was going to Vietnam, and his wife works for the airline, so he gets free airfare. So I said, "Oh, when are you going?" He says, "Oh, I'm going in a couple weeks." I go, "Do you have your visa?" He goes, "I need a visa?" I go, "Yes, you need a visa to travel to Vietnam." He goes, "Oh." He says, "Can you send me the info on where I can get one?" So I emailed him. 2
weeks out from his trip?
Yeah, so I emailed him the info. He got it in time, but, people don't know.
Yeah.
I think I shared this story with you when we were talking about this at the time. There was a woman that used to be in accounting with a different brokerage at a different time when I was living out in Los Angeles area, and her son went to either Cambodia or Thailand, and then decided when he was in Thailand, hey, I'm just going to hop on a puddle jumper and go over to Vietnam and go there. So he called her up and said, hey, Mom, I'm going to Vietnam for a week. I'll be back. Well, so he goes to Vietnam, he lands, immediately pull him into customs, arrest him for traveling there without a visa, and send him back to Thailand after holding him for like 48 or 72 hours and softening him up a little bit.
Probably not ideal accommodations, I wouldn't imagine.
No. So,
Wow.
But that just goes to the point that, one of the things that you offer is the knowledge of things like that, the details that people can overlook. And on top of that, if something goes wrong, they're going to get a free bottle of Chips O'Toole Special Reserve wine from you.
Nothing but the finest.
Nothing but the finest from the coast of Liverpool, England.
It's known for their fine wines, right? Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I know they're growing wine there now. But.
Well, you nailed it, though. Just you answer the questions that people don't think to ask. I absolutely would fall into that category. If I had to book an experience type of vacation, I wouldn't even know where to start. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know everything, but things I don't know, I have suppliers that can answer the questions for me.
Yeah.
And
well, especially when there's a trip that somebody's going to plan that you haven't necessarily done before, and they don't know what they want. I mean, that's stuff that you can dig into and find out and say, okay, hey, I've got an itinerary for you. Here's what I've got put together. These are all recommended. I mean, that's what you do. You do your research, just like Tony and I do our research when we need to find out information and we don't have the answers. We do the same thing.
Yeah, I give people options. I had a group, 4 couples. They went to Italy this past summer. And they stayed in a villa. We set them up in a villa. I have contacts for villas, in addition to a few days in Rome. And they got back.
Did you warn them about the gypsies?
Yes.
Okay.
So then I got a call last month. They want to go to Ireland, the 4 couples, for next year. So I got them set up and gave them a couple options. I said, here's an option, a motor coach tour, where you're on a motor coach with 40 other people, and you got a set schedule every day. Or we could set you up with a private driver with a Mercedes high top van, and they can take you. You have the driver all day. You can go wherever you want. And yeah, it's a little bit more money, but you have your own schedule. You can do things. The driver can suggest places to go, and that's what they ended up choosing. There was a little kickback from a couple of the couples because of the price, but they finally came around, and
I bet they had a great time, or going to have a great time.
They're going to have a good time. So, I've experienced those small group tours. In fact, I was in England in March, and it was a similar experience. And that's the way to go if you can, if you have a group of people.
Those big group tours just seem to me that you never get a chance to experience anything. You're constantly moving. This morning we're going to be here. This afternoon we're going to be here, and we're sleeping here. The next day we're on the road first thing in the morning after breakfast, and we're going to stop here, and we get 45 minutes here. And I mean, I did one of those for Normandy. I did one of those bus trips from Paris to Normandy, and we were in the bus for so long.
That's an all-day trip.
It was an all-day trip.
Wow.
We left at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we got back at 9:30 at night. We spent the whole day in Normandy, and we would get off the bus, and they say, okay, so you have an hour and a half to walk around the cemetery for the American soldiers and the monument that's there, go down to the beach. You got an hour and a half to do all that. We'll see you back at the bus in 90 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, that's a you've been there. That's a hell of an undertaking to do in 90 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, those tours are good for some people. Some people like those. Older people like those.
I don't know why. It's a little harder for them to get around in that short amount of time
Well,
to do all that stuff. You'd think it would be the opposite.
the majority of the people on those type of tours are over 60.
Okay.
I just had 3 couples that did a national parks tour. They just got back a week ago, and they had it was a 2-week trip, round trip from Vegas. It was on a motor coach. They had a great time. I guess that's probably the way to experience the national parks all at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have 2 weeks.
Yeah. Little tricky to be the driver and try to experience it when you're.
And they did go to Waldrug. And do you remember seeing those bumper stickers? Where the heck is Waldrug?
Yeah, sure. Right. Waldrug store. Yeah.
Waldrug, South Dakota.
Yeah.
It's like the largest drugstore or something of that order in the U.S.
Is that just about 50 miles south of the largest ball of mud?
It's in the general vicinity.
In the general vicinity. And the largest ball of twine is somewhere outside of St. Louis.
Oh man! Well, I'm inspired to take a trip. It's just I think a lot of people have reluctance or just choose not to plan vacations because of that fear of the unknown. Don't know where to start, and then we lose out on the experience because you just don't go. And I would fall into that category. I don't travel a ton. And so unless it was presented to me in a nice wrapped up package, here's how it's going to work, I have reluctance on planning that kind of thing. So it's a cool thing that you bring to the table.
Yeah, there's people that, like you, I've got somebody leaving today actually, or tomorrow, to Antwerp, Belgium for a diamond buying.
Same guy we know. Yeah.
Yes, you know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about. And he doesn't do a lot of traveling, but he's been over there, but it's been a number of years. And he said, I don't want to be stuck in the middle section of the plane, because the last time I did that, I got stuck next to somebody and they stunk so bad, and you're sitting next to them for 9 hours. When he booked it, all that was left were 2 seats. The middle section has 4 seats, so there was 2 seats open there. That was it in the premium economy section. So I had to put him there, but I've been checking every day to see if anything has opened up. And normally, if it's the airline holds seats back. People aren't aware of that, but they hold seats back. So when you go online and you see that it's all the seats are taken, they're not really taken.
Okay.
They leave so many for the gate agents to assign. So he still has another option. If it doesn't open up at online check-in to move around, then he can always check with the agent at the gate.
As a travel agent, have you ever had the opportunity to fly in the jump seat?
No.
Because you're in it today, buddy.
You're in the jump seat.
You're in the jump seat today. You're where all our guests have been able to sit on this, on our Real Estate Turbulence podcast.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the fun opportunity to book a Griswold-like trip across the United States?
No, I actually had somebody ask me to plan something like that.
Really?
In the past, years ago, that's when you call AAA and they put together a triptych for you,
right?
And which you flip through the pages. And I still have the one from when I went to Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame with my dad. I still have that one.
Okay.
And I was the driver, and he was flipping through the through the triptych.
Nice highlighted mark,
but
right? You know right where to go.
Those are I don't do those.
Do you do destination trips that people are driving to? If they're going to drive to Cooperstown, if they're going to go to Mount Rushmore and drive from here, I mean, do you do stuff like that?
Not a lot. Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I've another friend that we know. His name is John. He calls me occasionally when he's on a road trip with his wife and says, we're an hour outside of Toronto. Can you find me a hotel? And I've done those things for him, but we don't do a lot of those type of.
So your sweet spot is kind of the full package, the transportation, the lodging, and then the things to do
Right.
while you're there. Okay.
Or river cruises.
River
you do
cruise.
those as well.
Yes.
Both in stateside and then overseas.
Yes, in Europe. Europe and Asia. Those are big areas too.
Have you booked anybody on these Great Lakes cruises? These
No, but I've actually toured. I toured one of the ships that was docked in Detroit, and these are small. These are small ships. They only hold. I think that one holds maybe 100, 120 people. It's not like an ocean cruise liner, but it's a nice experience. But it's not cheap.
I've heard that. Yeah.
It's mostly a lot of Europeans
Really?
that are booking those. But I've been reading in some of the trade magazines where these companies are more companies are starting to come into this area, and they're going to be putting ships there. So,
starting to see the opportunity
Yes.
for travel
Yes.
on the lakes.
right.
Why not?
I mean, travel on the lakes was huge back in the 1900s.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big industry back then.
Well, clearly
I mean,
there's a demand.
I'd love to do it.
Yeah. Well, and people are paying the price, right? I mean, like you said, it's expensive, but
Right.
they're doing it, and there's a demand for
And
it.
you
so-
start getting more ships out there, there's more competition, that's going to drop the price.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
River cruises are like in Europe, or you could do the Mississippi too, are the main ones. Those, when you look at the price, they're more than an ocean cruise. But what's included, all your excursions every day are included in the price, along with, depending on the cruise line, every cruise line has beer and wine, lunch and dinner. Some are totally all-inclusive, where, it's an open bar 24/7. But when you start adding all these things up, the price isn't that much more than an ocean cruise.
Yeah. I'm surprised to hear that. So side by side, a river cruise is going to cost more. A river cruise here in the States is going to cost more than a similar amount of time on a cruise ship in the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And what drives that, would you say? What makes that more expensive?
Well, the ships only hold, on average, 150.
Okay.
Between 150 and 200.
Yeah. Compared to the typical cruise liner.
Cruise
in the
liner that holds 4,000.
Okay. Yeah. Well, economies of scale going on.
Right.
I guess, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
What's nice about the river cruises, I'm speaking more for Europe right now, the kitchens don't have the storage facilities for the food like they have on an ocean cruise line. An ocean cruise, if you're on the ship and you're waiting to leave port the first day, you look down and you see all these high-lows delivering crates and things like that. That's all the food for the whole week.
Okay.
The river cruises, they don't have that space. So what happens is, as you stop in each town along the way, the chef gets off the ship and goes to the local farmer's market right there and purchases. So, I mean, it's fresh and it's local. So you're getting, like if let's say you're stopped in Vienna, that night at dinner, you're going to have the specialties from Vienna.
That's cool.
Sausages and
Yeah.
things like that. So that's
That's a benefit.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Along with the wines too.
Okay.
They're going to serve wines from whatever area you're at.
That's true. So, you're not
And beer.
stuck on the Thames River drinking Chips O'Toole Special Reserve.
Right.
But having fish and chips every night, which wouldn't bother me, because when I was in England in March, that's kind of the joke. There was only 15 of us that were on this fam trip. And that was kind of the joke, because I had fish and chips every day, whether it was at dinner or lunch. So
Yeah.
I figure that's their specialty, right? I mean, they're not known
Yeah.
for gourmet food in England. they are known for fish and chips.
Right.
So I figured I couldn't go wrong there, and I didn't.
I had fish and chips over there the first time, and it was served. The fish was served to me in a newspaper.
Really, just wrapped up in a newspaper.
Wrapped up in a newspaper.
Wow.
The two big fried pieces of cod.
Very cool.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So where do you think, where do you see the travel industry in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you think things are headed? Are you headed towards a disruption, or do you see more people professionally coming in to assist? Do you see it growing, contracting? Where do you think it's going to be?
there's more right now. There's more people coming in to the business all the time. It's just.
Are there any classes that a travel agent has to take, or licenses they have to acquire?
Yes, going back to I think it was the first thing you mentioned about the.
It's only taking you 35 minutes to answer the damn question.
About people approaching you saying, book your trip with me, and I can get you this or that, or those are considered multi-level marketing companies, and it's kind of been the bane of the industry. They pop up and then they're taken to court, and they pop up again with a different name, and
sounds like some real estate company.
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think they're in every industry.
Yeah.
And book with me, or sign up with me, and it's like a pyramid scheme type of thing. So these people think they can just pay their way to be a travel agent. When
You sign up, and then you sign two people up, and they'll sign two people up. It's like that Fabergé commercial, right? And then so on, and so on, and so on, and pretty soon you'll have a big income stream coming in.
In theory, right?
In theory, yes.
Yeah.
like Amway,
Yeah.
yes.
I could see where that would sort of sully the industry and just make
Not
it
that
look
anything,
bad.
Amway's a legit company.
Yes,
It is.
yes.
Disclaimer.
Yes.
Do you have a
Legit
disclaimer for
company.
that?
I don't know that they're around anymore. In fact, I don't think they exist anymore, do they? They're a different name now, I think.
Are they?
I think
Yeah,
it
I
is a
think so.
different name.
I think it is a different name. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think Amway's now defunct.
Wow.
The name itself, anyways.
But there's classes. There's always training to go through. I've taken training for most of the major cruise lines. With our consortium, Signature Travel Network, I'm considered a Signature Travel expert because I went through the online training for that, which is kind of rigorous. So I'd like to be up to date on everything, just like your industries. You need to be continually.
So give us an example of, you say update on training. Give us an example of something that it pays to be updated on, that if somebody didn't go through this, they wouldn't be aware of. What might be an example of that? A change in your industry that's happened, that if you're not in the know, you could make an error to your client's detriment.
Good question.
No pressure.
Did I put you on the spot?
You put me on the spot here. Now my brain is going.
So, for instance, and for us, and for him, especially 2-3 years ago when the TRID regulations became law, there was all this speculation that the fact now that buyers actually had 3 days to review documents. Because what was happening is everybody we'd set up a close date for this date, and the buyers wouldn't see their closing documents until that morning. And so it's like, well, you either sign off on them and accept it, or we're not closing. And so a lot of buyers felt pressure that, okay, I guess I got to take it. There's no way to change it because we're under the gun. But now buyers have to see that stuff 3 days in advance prior to closing. So it's changed things. So that's a regulation like that if you don't understand it, you're probably out there spouting all bunch of crazy stuff and, operating under the same guise that, well, we can just close Monday, right? Even though the buyer just got the documents Monday. No, you've got to be aware of stuff like that. So anything in your industry that you can think of?
Well, the cruise lines are always changing itineraries, adding itineraries, things like that. I saw a lot of Alaska, and there's cruise lines that are coming into that market that haven't been there in years, like Cunard. Cunard's you've probably heard of Cunard. They do the transatlantic cruises. So that's all brand new, and if you're not informed on what their itineraries are, you're just kind of shooting from the hip. You need to be able to direct people, those clients that are right for Cunard compared to Royal Caribbean, for example. They change up hotels quite often on some of their cruise tours and things like that. So that's off the top of my head. That's one of the examples.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Well, before we let you go, I have to know your opinion.
I don't offer free advice.
Well, I'm not asking for advice. I want your opinion. So, your opinion: does Michigan make it to the game against Notre Dame with one loss?
Yes. Well, they're playing Indiana, then
Illinois, then Penn State,
Illinois, then Penn
in
State.
Happy Valley.
I'll say yes. They'll make it with one loss.
Okay. If they make it with one loss, I think we're looking at a night game, which means you and I got to figure out our schedule and how we're going to make that work. But
I saw our buddy Doug last night and at another event, and he seems to think it's a night game.
I would bet if they make it there with one loss, I think it's a night game.
Unfortunately, I don't like night games. But.
All right. Well, Tony, we want to.
Yeah, thanks,
Hunter,
Scott.
for coming
It's been
by.
great to have you on board. So somebody wants to reach you. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
At Cruise and Travel Experts.
Yes. The TravelingManVacations.com.
Is there a G on that, Traveling Man?
Yes, there is.
Traveling.
TravelingManVacations.com, or you can give me a call,
Yeah.
248-891-6809.
All right. Excellent. This was informative. I'm still pleasantly surprised as to the viability of somebody can call up a person like you and just have it all laid out and arranged and do this, don't do that. It's all.
You know what's interesting is that, it just goes to prove that even though his industry was considered dead 20 years ago, how much people still enjoy and embrace the convenience of having somebody do something like that, as well as the personal touch and the personal connection and conversation.
Yeah.
It just, there's certain things that you can technology out, but those are some things you just can't. And, we're seeing change in our business, which is why I thought our discussion would be so interesting. And so we hear the doomsdayers saying that, we're going to go the way the travel agency did 20 years ago. But, you're living proof that people really want that help, that convenience, and that connection.
Yeah,
With
there's a
an
value, a genuine value there for
Right.
sure. Thanks for coming on.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we
Thanks,
talked
Scott.
about a different kind of turbulence today. So, but it's
We did.
Yeah, very good. All right. Hey, thanks for listening to Avoiding Real Estate Turbulence. If you'd be so kind to subscribe, review, and rate, we'd appreciate it. Please share with your friends, family, and coworkers that they too can find us at AvoidingRET.com, where you'll find our contact information in every episode. You can also find us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Spotify.
Couldn't wait to scroll on your Google phone.
He's a busy man.
I was checking my emails.
Jesus, had this guy for a guest, and he's already checking his emails.
We
before
bored
we
him.
even
Holy cow.
cut the mics off. Holy cow!
Thanks,
I wanted to
Scott.
see if it was
Thanks,
posted
Scott.
online yet.
Oh, yeah. Good recovery.
That media, huh? Thanks, appreciate it.